Just call it the Great Tax Migration. Liberal policies are said to be forcing more and more people to pack up and move out of high tax states, especially after Trump's tax reform took effect. That's because they're limiting residents' state and local deductions, that SALT deduction. In a new op-ed, our next guest writes, quote, if high tax states want to shrink the incentive for out-migration, folks leaving the state, it's shockingly easy to do so. Rather than penalize hard work and innovation, states like California and New York must take steps to reward it. Joining me now is editor of Real Clear Markets and the author of the forthcoming book, The End of Work, John Tamny. We won't even talk about what Bernie Sanders wants to do to end work today with his federal jobs for all. But at the state level, you see these high-tax states already taxing their folks a lot, but the new tax law hurts them even more. How can these states fix it?
Well, they can fix it, I think, by reminding themselves that what makes New York City great, and all of you know this, and what makes California great are the people. We are surrounded in each state by some of the most talented people on earth, but everyone's got a price. Taxes are a price or penalty placed on work, and when you raise the top rate, as has happened to 52, 53%, there's going to be an out-migration of people crucial to the economic health of both states.
John, makes a ton of sense to me, but do you have any idea whether politicians, Democrats in California and New York, are going to look at that and say, okay, now's the time to lower that state income rate, otherwise we're going to lose people?
You know, it's hard to imagine right now with California, because California is going through another one of its booms. Let's not forget that despite everything, California gets half of all the venture capital in the world.
Sure.
Goes to that state. And so California probably hasn't hit a tipping point yet. It's interesting, Andrew Cuomo, for all of his weaknesses, seems to have acknowledged that we have a problem here. The top tax rate for New Yorkers before the tax reform bill was roughly 45%. It is now 52%. If you look at the history of just the 21st century alone, that led to the out-migration of millions from states like California and New York. I think they're starting to realize that their best resources are the people who show up for work and every day in these states. And I think New York's probably going to move first. I hope so.
John Tamny, unfortunately, we have to leave it right there, but congrats on the new book, The End of Work. Looking forward to it.
Thank you.
Welcome back on this very busy night of breaking news. You just heard President Trump right here on Justice discussing the latest on the border crisis. And here to react to that and more, Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy joins me now. Good evening, Congressman McCarthy. You heard the interview with the president?
Yes, I did. I thought he did a very good job.
And what is your take on the issue of the border and how the Democrats are handling it, given especially that Schumer has voted for a border fence 8 times, Pelosi has voted for a border fence, the way the Democrats are behaving in the meetings with the president? What's your opinion?
Look, I've been in all these meetings, and I've watched the president. Even when you listen to him tonight, he was calm, just answered the questions. I watched him in these meetings. He's made offer after offer. The only people in these meetings that have not made a counteroffer are the Democrats. The Democrats said they're for border security. But who in America believes that border security would not include some form of a barrier? We know that works. We know there is a crisis on the southern end. You know who else said there was a crisis on the southern end of our border? Barack Obama. Who's voted for fencing? Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, Biden, Nancy Pelosi twice. But now, because it's President Trump, they're allowing their own political bias to enter in this for those extreme levels of the Democratic Party to stop anything from moving. And this is causing real damage. There's 800,000 Americans who didn't get a paycheck because Nancy Pelosi will not compromise. She will not even put an offer on the table. And they've been in power, and what have they done every week they've been in power that government's shut down? They adjourn instead of staying here and solving the problem.
Well, you know, Congressman, the amazing part of it all is that it's almost as though the illegals are more important to them than the American citizens and the safety and sovereignty of this country.
Well, what's very concerning to me, they'd rather have open borders than an open government. We have sat inside these rooms, and when we had our first meeting in the Situation Room, to just get the facts on the southern border, the minute Secretary Nielsen from Homeland Security went to speak, the Speaker Pelosi and Senator Schumer interrupt, will not let her talk because they don't want to hear the facts. 3, 4 meetings in, when we finally get the facts out, she says, I just do not believe them. And I thought the secretary was very strong. She goes, ma'am, those are just the facts. And what's most interesting is when we first started these meetings, Speaker Pelosi could not actually discuss it because she wasn't elected speaker yet. Then when she gets elected speaker, the president, even in the last meeting, offered her what she wanted. She said, he turned to her and said, okay, Nancy, if I open up the government in 30 days, could we have border security? She said, not at all. That's why he got up and left, because they will not even go 1 minute of compromise. And the president has moved from a concrete wall to a steel slat.
Right.
I mean, he has moved, and you've heard Democrats say they would support part of the wall.
Part of the wall, absolutely. I ran several the sound of them.
Yeah.
But the amazing part of this thing is that if the American people, 800,000, are not getting a paycheck, and if 90% of the heroin in this country, and I don't know what percentage of fentanyl is coming from the southern border, and we know that there are gang members coming through, why isn't the American public onto the fact that they don't care about the American people, that if Chuck Schumer can't eyeball the president, he can't even look in his eyes, and they come out smiling and smirking, that, the American people need to get what's going on here?
And what the American people have to understand, because of the rules of the Senate, you need 60 votes. So this shutdown would have never taken place unless Senator Schumer decided he would not provide the 10 votes, because the House, when the Republicans were in the majority, sent a compromise over to the Senate that gave $5.6 billion in border security. Schumer said no, so we went into a shutdown. The president stayed here to solve it, and where did the Democrats go? Just like they weren't this weekend. They don't want to come back to the table, and the president is right. We could solve this in 15, 20 minutes. It would be over. And we'll compromise, too. I will work with any American that wants to move America forward and actually secure our border and open this government up.
All right, I've got 20 seconds,
Yes.
Minority Leader. I mean, how's this end?
I'm sorry?
How does it end?
Well, how it should end, how our government is designed, that we find compromise on both sides, we secure our border, just as President Obama said there was a crisis, and we see that there's a crisis today, that you have to have for border security, yes, some barrier along there. We've seen it work in San Diego, El Paso, Yuma. We know that it works, and we know we need a part of that. And I appreciate the president being strong and making it happen.
We appreciate your being here, Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy. Thanks so much.